100 billion packs. That's how many instant noodles the world eats in a year. 13 packs for every person alive. I checked that math twice because it sounds invented. It holds. And the brick in your cupboard is stranger than it looks. Before it got there, it was steamed at 100 degrees, fried in palm oil at 150, and soaked in an alkaline mineral water that Chinese noodle makers were already using in the Ming Dynasty. Which raises a few questions. Why fry a noodle you're only going to boil again? What is 500-year-old mineral water doing in a modern factory? And how does a block of dried dough know to come back to life in exactly 3 minutes? Today we're tracing every ingredient back to its raw form, from the wheat still standing in a field to the garlic waiting to become powder, and following all of it through the factory to see how it becomes the most successful convenience food ever made. Every pack starts in a wheat field, usually thousands of kilometers from the factory, and factories are picky about their wheat. They buy hard varieties, high in protein, 11 to 13%. That protein becomes gluten, and gluten is the chew. Too little of it, and the noodles collapse into mush the moment hot water hits them. Too much, and they chew like leather. At harvest, the kernels arrive at the mill by the truckload. They're dumped into intake pits and carried upward by bucket elevators. Basically, a vertical conveyor fitted with steel scoops into silos that hold more than 1,000 metric tons of grain. From the silo, the wheat runs through sieves and past magnets that pull out stones, stray seeds, and any metal that hitched a ride from the field. Then the milling starts. The kernels feed between pairs of steel rollers. The first pair cracks them open. The next grinds the starchy center finer. Somewhere around the 8th or 9th pair, the wheat has become a powder so fine it feels like silk. That flour still isn't ready. It gets piped into a holding bin and left there, resting for 2 to 3 weeks. Millers call it maturation. The gluten proteins slowly oxidize, and the dough they'll eventually form gets stronger for it. Skip the rest and the dough tears apart on the production line. Wait too long and the flour weakens again. About 2 weeks, that's the window. Here the recipe takes a strange turn. Homemade pasta is flour, eggs, water, salt. Instant noodles skip the eggs entirely. And the water isn't really water. It's Kansui, an alkaline solution of sodium carbonate and potassium carbonate, measured to the gram. Kansui sounds like modern food chemistry. It's older than the factory by centuries. The story goes that noodle makers in Inner Mongolia drew water from alkaline lakes and found their noodles came out golden and springy in a way plain water never managed. The practice spread through China from the Ming Dynasty onward. The chemistry behind the folklore checks out. Flour carries 2 proteins, glutenin and gliadin, which link into gluten when water hits them. Kansui pushes the pH up to around 9 or 10. At that pH, the gluten bonds pull tighter and cross-link harder, and the enzymes that would slowly break the dough down get shut off. The result is a noodle that stays springy after 6 months on a shelf. Factory Kansui doesn't come from a lake anymore. It starts as trona ore, mined, then heated in kilns until it breaks down into fine white soda ash. That powder dissolves into measured tanks of water, and the solution gets pumped straight to the mixing room. The ratio sits near 1 part Kansui to 100 parts flour, a fraction of a percent off, and the whole batch loses its bounce. The aged flour pours into a stainless steel mixer the size of a cement drum, and the Kansui goes in over it as a fine mist. For the first 15 minutes, the paddles turn slowly, and what forms looks wrong, crumbly like damp sand, nowhere near a smooth ball of dough. That's deliberate. The water hasn't fully absorbed yet, and the gluten needs the time. The crumbs then feed through a line of rollers. The first pair presses them into a rough sheet about a centimeter thick. Each pair after that squeezes the sheet thinner, and by the final pass, the dough is a pale ribbon 1 millimeter thick, thin enough to read a newspaper through. It glides across the factory floor in endless sheets, rippling like fabric. Then the cutters. Rotating blades slice each sheet into hundreds of parallel strands, each about 1.5 millimeters wide. And the cutter head doesn't slice straight, it wobbles on purpose. That wobble is where the famous crinkle comes from. The crinkle earns its keep too. Waves give each strand more surface area, so hot water reaches more starch at once. The curls nest into a tight, compact block for packing, and a wavy strand flexes in shipping, where a straight one snaps. The strands ride a mesh conveyor into a steaming tunnel. 30 meters of saturated steam at 100 degrees. 2 minutes inside. That's enough for the starch granules to swell and gelatinize, setting the outside of each strand while the core stays raw. The dough goes in as dough and comes out, for the first time, as noodle, half-cooked noodle. The finishing step needs oil. While the noodles form, a second production line builds the flavor packet. And this line really does start from scratch. Carrots, corn, green onions, and cabbage arrive fresh from the farm. They're washed, diced small, and spread across heated drying beds, where warm air moves over them for 6 to 8 hours until less than 5% of their moisture remains. What's left are feather-light flakes that keep for months and swell back to life the moment boiling water finds them. The powder side of the line is louder. Whole dried garlic bulbs go into industrial grinders and come out as pungent dust. Dried onion follows the same route. White peppercorns pass through milling chambers, ground and sieved again until the powder floats in the air like smoke. Soy sauce arrives as a liquid and leaves as a powder, spray-dried into particles almost too small to see. And the MSG is grown. A strain of bacteria gets fed molasses and left to ferment. It excretes glutamic acid, which is then crystallized, dried, and milled into the small white crystals that sharpen every other flavor in the packet. Garlic, onion, pepper, soy, MSG, salt, sugar, and a dehydrated chicken or vegetable extract all tumble together in a ribbon blender for 20 minutes until the mix is uniform. It has to be. A teaspoon of this powder packed in Jakarta has to taste identical to one opened in Berlin. But taste itself is the one thing no blender can standardize, because every country wants a different packet. Japan, where the instant noodle was invented in 1958, still leans on soy sauce and pork bone broth. Korea turns the chili up until the packet glows red. Shin Ramyun's beef and pepper powder sits in nearly every pantry in the country, and the Fire Noodle Challenge made its spiciest packs famous far beyond it. Indonesia barely bothers with broth at all. Goreng gets drained and tossed dry with sweet soy sauce and fried shallots. India runs on Maggi masala. Thailand wants tom yum, all lemongrass, lime and shrimp. Mexico squeezes lime and habanero into the cup. And in China, the biggest instant noodle market on earth, the flavor to beat has been braised beef for decades. Same wheat, same Kansui, same fried cake underneath. The only thing that changes at the border is that little foil sachet, and it changes completely. And per person, nobody touches Vietnam and South Korea, where the count runs past 70 packs a year. That's a pack every 5 days. Now, the step that earns the word instant. The steamed strands are folded into round metal molds, the familiar cake shape, and carried into a deep fryer filled with palm oil at 150 degrees. Remember the question from the start: why fry a noodle you're only going to boil again? Here's the answer. About a third of the steamed noodle's weight is still water. When the cake hits the oil, that water flashes into steam and blasts its way out through thousands of microscopic channels. Palm oil rushes into the space left behind. Those oil-filled channels are the whole trick. Pour boiling water over the cake at home, and the oil softens, the channels reopen, and water floods back into the starch, along the exact paths the steam carved at the factory. 3 minutes. That's how long the reopening takes, and it's why the packet tells you to wait exactly that long. Each cake spends 60 to 90 seconds in the oil. Longer, and it turns greasy and brittle. Shorter, and it won't rehydrate. The cakes come out golden and pass straight into a cooling tunnel where chilled air stops the cooking and sets the oil hard. The scale of the frying line is hard to picture. A mid-sized factory runs through tens of thousands of liters of palm oil a day, filtered continuously and sampled every hour, so the last batch at midnight fries exactly like the first one at dawn. The cooled cakes ride toward packaging under the gaze of high-speed cameras. Every cake is photographed from several angles, and software checks each image in milliseconds. Color, diameter, wave pattern, cracks, burns. A cake that fails any single check gets knocked into the reject bin by a puff of compressed air. No hands involved, The survivors slide into foil-lined wrappers along with the seasoning sachet and the vegetable packet. Just before sealing, a burst of nitrogen flushes the oxygen out of the pack. Oxygen would slowly turn the frying oil rancid. Nitrogen sits there doing nothing, which is exactly the job. It keeps the noodles fresh for up to 8 months without preservatives. Every sealed packet then crosses a check weigher accurate to 1/10 of a gram. If packets start running light, the filling machine upstream adjusts itself in real time. Robotic arms stack the approved packs into boxes and the boxes onto pallets around the clock. And before any pallet leaves, the quality team cooks some. Random samples prepared exactly the way you would at home. Boiling water, 3 minutes. Then trained tasters judge the texture, the salt, and the rehydration. If a sample comes back wrong, the whole shift's production gets flagged, investigated, and sometimes scrapped. At 1,000,000 packs a day, one bad batch travels far. So the next time you tear open a pack at 2 in the morning, look at it for a second before you drown it. Wheat that rested 2 weeks in a silo so its gluten would hold. Mineral water that noodle makers trusted 500 years before anyone could explain the chemistry. Garlic ground fine enough to float. MSG farmed from bacteria. And a cake of noodles shot through with microscopic channels, waiting for hot water to find the paths the steam carved. All of that engineering sitting in your cupboard for less than $1. Now I want to know your build. Egg and extra vegetables loaded on top, or straight from the packet, untouched? And which country's packet do you swear by? Shin Ramyun, Goreng, Maggi masala, Tom Yum? Say it all in the comments. Let's find out who's actually eating their 70 packs a year. And while your 3 minutes tick down, think about what's sitting next to the bowl. For a lot of us, it's a cold Coke. That can went through a factory story of its own, and parts of it are stranger than anything you saw today. We looked at what really happens inside a Coca-Cola factory. It's on your screen right now. Bring the noodles.